Hello everybody, and a warm welcome to you, and it certainly is a warm welcome here in Yorkshire. We are delighted to be with you this evening to have a chat with you, talk about some of your sewing questions, giving you all the latest updates on what's happening with the festival of quilts and various other things. So we have a fun evening planned, and I am going to pass you straight over to David so that he can also welcome you and find out where you are joining us from this evening.
Hi everybody, welcome. Susan Jenkins, you got the award for the first person on the stream, which was on Tuesday night apparently you joined, so hopefully you're going to join us again tonight. Deborah Chancellor from South Dakota, Fiona Harpin from Swindon, Jennifer Clifford from New Zealand, well done Jennifer, Deb Dell from Rhode Island, Cilla Moncrief from Somerset, Chris Dobson from Reading, Megan Arnold from Malvern, Davina Thomas, I think you've got a question tonight, from St Albans, Janet Chisholm, I think you've got a question as well, hello from sunny Broadway. So lots of people. Charlene Fort from China in Texas, and then we've got Maria Margarita Fernandez from Puerto Rico. So
wow,
lots of different places. You are all very welcome.
But that is exciting. What a lovely range. And we always start with the weather, don't you? But we have had the most atrocious summer so far, haven't we, David?
Yes, we have.
I mean, I think the worst summer that I can possibly remember. However, yesterday and today it has been really lovely. And this morning I was doing a little bit of weeding outside and then there was the most enormous kind of pop noise, and I couldn't work out what it was at all. And I went and had a look in next door's garden because they've got a little girl and they've got some blow-up garden furniture. Oh, right, yeah. And I wondered if it was some of that had kind of swelled up and exploded in the heat, but I couldn't see anything. Anyway, I went back to my weeding and it happened again, even louder. I mean, even louder. And what we've got is the kind of base of a metal wheelbarrow, and instead of the plastic kind of buckety bit of the wheelbarrow, Peter, my husband, has made this kind of platform, and we call it the low loader, and it's really useful for chicken food and things like that, where you don't want to lift something heavy high up, you just put it on the low loader. And so it was the inner tube and the tyre of the low loader had exploded in the heat. So there you go, that's how hot it is. Anyway, this evening Peter is around somewhere, but he's actually cooking this evening, so I don't know whether he's going to make an appearance, but he isn't here right now to draw out our winners for our two prizes. I'm just listing out to see if he's going to come. Always when we're getting ready for a live, I'm thinking, oh, what little gift can I sort out for two lucky winners this time? And you don't have to be a member, you don't have to do anything, you just have to be a member. And then I thought, oh well, sewing machine needles are just so useful, aren't they? I will do sewing machine needles. But now I have a little bit of a dilemma, David. So I'm going to get, I think, Microtex needles. But do I send 3 packets? Do I send 70s, 80s and 90s? Or do I send 60s, 70s and 80s? Or do I go up to 4 packets and go 60, 70, 80, 90? The winners will just have to wait and see what arrives. So 2 tickets out of my bag, and then at the end of the session, either David or Peter, if he sticks his head in the door, will let us know who our lucky winners are. There you go, David.
Can you switch the fan off as well? I think
oh my goodness. Sorry.
So there's a bit of background noise.
Sorry, I completely forgot about that. I do apologise. That was just cooling me down before we started. Sorry about that. Dear.
Probably easier to hear what's going on now. Okay, so let's go for the first question. So the first question is from Leslie McKinley, and Leslie says, "Hi Philippa, I've enjoyed your dressmaking and quilting classes online. My question is, I purchased a pattern for a blouse to make one of your classes, and I noticed on the bottom right hand corner it has the USA, US. Should she return the pattern to John Lewis, or will she be able to use it? She's new to dressmaking, and that's Leslie McKinley.
Okay, so Leslie, I have a pattern in front of me which I imagine has exactly the same little symbol that you have found, and at the bottom here there is a little American flag, the stars and stripes, and it says designed and printed in the USA. And what you will find is that the majority of the big commercial pattern companies are American, and how nice to see that it's designed and printed in the USA, not just designed in the USA and printed elsewhere. So yes, that's what you're going to find on the majority of patterns that you purchase. You don't need to worry about it at all. That is what we are all using all the time, or most of it using all the time. The only thing I need to caution you on is making sure that you buy the correct size pattern, because American sizes don't correspond to British sizes in terms of bought ready-to-wear garments. So on this particular pattern, the sizing, the body measurements are on the back of the pattern, and on this pattern they are on the inside flap there. So you probably find it in either of those two places. Just make sure you are buying the correct size, but do not worry if it says that it's an American pattern. It works for all of us, so you don't need to worry, you don't need to send it back, you just need to get cutting out.
Thank you, Philippa. Okay, can we get rid of the bag off the table?
Of course.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm very well trained. We were talking about training husbands earlier on, and I've been very well trained by my wife. So the next question is from Esther Jocelyn, and Esther says, have you heard of the Lutterloh Golden Rule system of pattern making? I understand it came from Germany and has been around since 1935. They have systems for those who are regular sized, plus sized, petite sized, also children's and men's sizes. I've got a plus size set and intend to experiment with it soon. The problem is finding the time. And then she says, I found a partial roll of blank newsprint to make the actual patterns. I scored the blank newsprint at my local newspaper print office, where my brother discovered they were giving it away for the taking. I have enough to last me for the rest of my days. Well, I was very impressed at your scoring the newsprint for the patterns. But Philippa, what can you tell us about the Lutterloh Golden Rule system? Okay,
it is not a system that I have ever used or indeed tried, but we did have this question a little while ago, didn't we, David? And I did a little bit of research into it at the time, and basically what we discovered were there were an awful lot of pre-loved ones for sale, because people had purchased the system and not actually used them. And I did look at some reviews, and the reviews did say that it wasn't particularly easy to get to grips with, and it was a kind of a little bit tricky, and that they didn't really suggest that it was the best way of going about making patterns. So my suggestion to you, Esther, is to have a good look online and find some reviews, have a little read up, but also see if you can find something that somebody's actually used it and get a little bit of advice on that, because it isn't my area of expertise. All of my training and the method that I use tends to be flat pattern cutting, which is what you get in the bought patterns that you buy, and I teach you lots of ways of using the patterns and altering the patterns in the series of classes that we have got. So always remember, in your index there's the pattern alteration list there, so that you can find lots and lots of different alterations, so that you can really adapt a bought pattern to be a much better and more personalized fit for you. So fantastic on the paper, you're still going to need that, but I suggest you do a bit more research online, and I think it's something that you probably have to spend quite a lot of time with to really get to grips with.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that helps you, Esther. Now the next question I have is from Michelle Dobson, and Michelle says, I have a medium to heavyweight jacquard weave piece of linen I would like to make the Chanel jacket with. Given the wrinkling tendencies of linen, would you advise against it, or can I use an interlining for stability, or possibly a high quality fusible? And that's Michelle Dobson.
Okay, Michelle, that is an interesting question. I don't think we've had that question before, so well done you. Now then, the first thing I'm going to say to you is I think you need to really determine how wrinkly your fabric is. It may be that it's not 100% linen. It may have a little bit of a man-made in there, polyester, something like that. And if it had a bit of man-made in it, it would wrinkle less because those man-made fibres are not as wrinkly as linen. Okay, what I'm going to suggest you do is you get hold of it and you get a nice handful and you really squeeze it and hold it for a little while and then release it and then see how much it has actually creased. And if you want to find out what the fibre content is and you haven't got a label to tell you, you can do a little burn test. I suggest you go and do it outside. And the natural fibre, the linen, will burn and it will leave a kind of ashy residue and it won't smell acrid. But if it's got some man-made in it, it will leave a kind of bit of a plasticky bead which may be black or brown and it might smell quite acrid. So that will help you with that. Now some people don't mind creased linen and some people don't like it. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, do you actually mind the creasing, or is it something that you're quite kind of happy with? You know, lots of Italian men wear suits that are made of linen because they are cool and easy to wear in hot weather, and they are just creased. It is the nature of the beast. So you do have to ask yourself that question. Now then, I think that if you are going to interline it, then it might reduce the creasing a little bit, but not really very much. So for example, where you bend your arm, you're going to get lots of creasing here. You're probably going to get some creasing around the armhole. You know, if you sit back in a seat, it may sort of get slightly pleated up and you get some creases going across the back. So the interlining will add kind of structure to it, but it won't stop the creasing. And likewise, a fusible, I would be a little bit reluctant about a fusible. I mean, one of the things about the linen is you don't want to really try and make it something else, do you? Because if you're trying to make it something else, wouldn't you buy a different fabric, really? And I think it will just make it stiff. It will not have the same kind of give. It'll be a much more kind of rigid garment. And I think over time, there is always a tendency for fusibles to become unstuck and you get bubbling. And some places it continues to adhere and then in other places it doesn't. So to recap, determine what you think it is, find out how much it creases by squashing it, decide whether you like that creasing or not. If you like it, you're going to go ahead with the method of the Chanel jacket that I describe in the class. If you don't like it, I really think you should save it for something else rather than put a fusible on it. You're going to interline anyway because that's part of the process of making this Chanel jacket, but I would be a bit reluctant to stick a fusible on it. But as with everything, I always say try it out. So you could cut a little section of your fabric, put a fusible on it, see what you think of the handle, how much it alters it, if it makes any difference to the actual creasing. So quite a lot for you to explore there, and as always we need the story of what you decide to do because that is great information for all of us.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that's helpful, Michelle, and do let us know what you decide to do, and send us some pictures as well. If you do end up making it, send us some pictures. Okay, the next question is from Janet Chisholm, and Janet says, hi Philippa and David, at last I'm going to get around to making a quilted jacket and also a gilet. I'm going to use a quilt top, made but not quilted, or made not quilted. I would like to use wadding rather than brushed cotton for the interlining. I'd like to use cotton wadding, but do I need to wash it to shrink it? I remember that when I started patchwork I was advised to soak wash the wadding to shrink it. What do you think? I don't want to use polyester wadding. And that's from Janet Chisholm. And Janet says, PS, hope to see you at the Festival of Quilts. Well, if you're there, you will see us, hopefully.
Okay, so Janet, good question. You don't need to apologise for finally getting round to making the quilted jacket. We don't know when you joined up. We don't know how long you've had that class. That's absolutely fine. Come to any of the classes when you are ready to. That's true for everybody, me included. So the actual quilted jacket that I make in the class, the fabric appears to be quilted, but it is just a print. It is actually a plain fabric, and I put washed brushed cotton between the outer fabric and the cotton lining so that it has a bit of structure and some extra warmth, but it's not really stiff. So if you are going to use cotton wadding for a more substantial jacket, then I would definitely pre-shrink it, and that would be by soaking it and not putting it through a program through your washing machine, because it's going to be too severe just for that batting or washing on its own. Okay, but I would choose very carefully, because there are many different types available of different stiffness and different thickness, and I do have a bit of a thing about quilted jackets that have really rigid wadding in the middle and just look so kind of stiff, and they add kind of inches and pounds to you, which you don't want. So I would really do your research on that, and I would just suggest that you have a look at some other possibilities. You know, you could try an 80-20, bit of polyester, not quite so stiff. You could try 50-50. You could try a wool wadding, which would be lovely and breathable and warm in winter, cooler in the warmer weather, and much more flexible and a little bit more fluffy. Might be a really nice choice. So I would think a little bit further. If you're going to use wool, would you pre-shrink that? Pre-shrink your outer fabric and your lining, definitely. I know you've got a quilt top there, so it's going to be a bit tricky, isn't it? And maybe need to recap on that, don't I? Okay, so what I'm going to say is wash your lining. I would spritz your quilt top so that it's quite damp and give it a hot iron from the wrong side so that you are really flattening out all of those seams, and that will take care of a little bit of shrinkage. Once you've ironed it on the wrong side, I would iron it on the right side, maybe giving it a bit of a spritz again. I'm going to say no to that wool, even though I just suggested it. I'm going to suggest you look at a lighter weight cotton or something like an 80-20 wadding that you have pre-shrunk by soaking it and then spinning it and then drying it flat and not putting it in the dryer. So we await the finished results. It doesn't need to be fast, just enjoy the process.
Okay, thank you, Philippa. So hopefully that helps you, Janet, and we look forward to seeing a picture of the finished result, and let us know which you choose. Okay, so the next question is from Diana Brangwin, and Diana says, I've just finished making the trousers for the second time and I'm really pleased. The first pair were my practice run, made with the psychedelic flowery cotton fabric. I call them my Glasto pants from Glastonbury, for those who don't know what Glasto pants might be. The second pair I have made with a black fabric that is very like the is it Cady?
Cady,
yeah.
that
Philippa suggested. It certainly looks and behaves just like it, but it isn't silk, which online platforms suggest. The shop I bought it from has no idea how it should be laundered. It's entirely synthetic. Have you any idea on how it might need to be washed? And that's from Diana Brangwin. We've got some more washing questions. Okay,
so, and our booth at the Festival of Quilts, I'm not going to give anything away particularly here, but it is a washing themed booth. So David has been tasked with going to buy more artificial grass for the floor of the booth. Yeah, Glasto. So Glastonbury, I'm sure most of you know, but it is Britain's biggest music festival. It's been going how many years, David? It's near Glastonbury Tor in Somerset, and I have a very good friend, lovely girl called Jen, who goes every year, and I saw her just after she got back from Glastonbury, and she had diamante stuck on her teeth just for Glastonbury, and I was very taken with it. She said it cost her only about £60 and it lasts about a year, so compared to most dentistry, that sounds like a deal, doesn't it, David? Yeah, she also had amazing nails as well. So anyway, the fabric that I used for the trousers, and I'm sorry, they're on the rail there, I should have got them out. It is a red fabric and it is polyester, and it's very nice and substantial. They're kind of buried in the middle there, David, and I've probably got a bag over them to protect them, so you might not be able to find them. So my suggestion is, I do think that we often tend to overwash our clothes. We wash them too often and we wash them too harshly, and it kind of knocks the stuffing out of them, and they don't. Lovely, thank you. So here, thank you, David, is the pair of trousers, and it almost has a kind of wool, I know this sounds odd, but it almost has like a 1970s kind of trouser wool quality to them, but it is polyester. They hold a crease really beautifully, and they were really nice to sew. So if I was to wash these, I mean, you could have them dry cleaned, but if I was to wash these, I would wash them by hand with a very gentle detergent, and I would I don't think they need, especially if they're black, they're not going to need tons and tons of washing at all. Okay, so hand wash them. I probably would hang these to dry without spinning them, so they're almost kind of drip dry. I might roll them in a towel first and then hang them up to dry. I would turn them inside out to do the majority of the pressing, so that I wasn't going to make them shiny, and I would be able to get the toe of my iron underneath the seams, because you don't want to be pressing over the seams, because you're going to put an impression on the right side of the garment. So I would press them mostly inside out, but then when it came to putting the creases back in, if your trousers have creases, I would then obviously be doing that from the right side, but underneath a damp pressing cloth. Okay, so that is a gentle hand wash. You could give them a very light spin, but I would tend to roll them up in a towel. I would hang them to dry, iron them, warm iron on the wrong side, and then when you want to put the creases back in or sharpen up the creases, because they shouldn't really disappear, you're going to do that under a damp cloth so that you are protecting the fabric. You will have some little bits of your fabric left over from making those trousers, so it's a good idea just to give that little wash and a press and just see how the little sample piece reacts. I say it all the time, try it out, do a little sample, have a little go, see what happens, and then you'll have a much better idea. But hopefully that will help.
Okay, thank you, Philippa.
Thank you for getting the trousers.
So, Diana, hopefully you will be enjoying those trousers as well. The next question is from Joanna Pike, and this is our first Chanel jacket question. So we've done quite well so far, getting through to question 6, or question 7 on our sheet. So Joanna Pike says, I would like to ask a general question about construction and tailoring of the Chanel jacket. I'm currently researching Chanel jackets and would like to make one. I note that many of the patterns use princess seams. I do not want to use princess seams because too much fitting does not work for my body shape. And she says it's busty inverted triangle with a short waist and a high hip. I need minimal shaping in a jacket so that it skims over my mid-body challenges and emphasises my fantastic shoulder line. I would she's put a little symbol like that, so well done you. I would therefore like to make a boxy style jacket. I found a couple of patterns which are boxier than the princess seam style, which may meet my needs. In the meantime, I've also seen a beautiful Dior jacket, and we've got a picture of this, which illustrates the jacket shape I would like to achieve. The side-on image of the jacket shows there is a seam running from beneath the arm side. My question is, what is the purpose of this seam? And I'll flip the picture up in a second of the side-on view. What is the purpose of this seam? Is it a panel or a dart, and how does it affect the construction shaping of the jacket? Could I replicate this by moving a dart princess seam or by adding a panel? So that is from Joanna Pike.
So, Joanna, that's a very good question. You're very realistic about your body shape, but you know what your good features are. So you've got it all worked out beautifully there, haven't you? You've really thought about it. So can we have a quick look at the two images that Joanna sent to us, please, David?
So I'll put the sideways on one. Oh, there we go. So there's the sideways one.
Okay, now I don't know whether you can see in that image, but there is a seam that runs from kind of the front underarm, and actually the pocket goes over the seam. The pocket is set quite far back, so the pocket is kind of in the middle of the centre front panel, the front of the pocket, and then it extends quite a long way back to the underarm. Now there is a second picture of the front of the jacket, but what we don't have a picture of is the back of the jacket. So what we don't know is what is actually going on in terms of other seams in the jacket, and it may be that that is the underarm seam and it's just been brought forward, or there may be a skinny panel under the arm, which I think is unlikely really. I mean, if I was to imagine, what I would imagine there is here is this seam that is slightly forward of the underarm, and then I imagine a centre back seam, and so I think the seam's just been moved slightly forward. I mean, what we always get with these beautiful girls that model these clothes is they are tiny and they don't really need any bust shaping, and it doesn't look like there's any shaping in that seam. It looks just as though it goes just straight down. I mean, the girl, I mean, she's so slim and she doesn't appear to have very much bust at all, if any, and so she doesn't need any bust shaping. So I think that you just need to find and we don't know what you found, but you say you found two patterns that are kind of suitable, or that you think are going to be suitable. I would make up a toile and take it from there. You may not need any bust shaping in terms of a dart or shaping in a seam at all anyway. The softer and the more pliable your fabric is, so like the Linton tweeds, the more it is going to mould without necessitating any actual stitch darts or any stitch shaping in a seam. So your fabric can make a big difference to the success of the fit of your garment. So I think it is just a side seam that has been brought forward slightly. That is my interpretation, but again, without seeing the back and what else happens on the rest of the jacket, I cannot be fully sure, but that is my impression. So I think make your toile, that's the most important thing, and then if you need additional help with that, get back to us next month with another picture, Joanna.
Okay, thank you. I did have a quick look to see whether I could see any of those pictures anywhere, to see where you'd got them from, but I couldn't see where you'd found that Dior jacket. We're not even sure whether it's a pattern or just a catwalk model. Okay, so the next question is from Jan Smith, and in fact it's not really a question, it's just a comment. Jan says, when we released the jacket class, Philippa talked about Coco Chanel, who designed the Chanel jackets. Jan Smith is saying that she's read a couple of books that she thought we might be interested in. The first one is called The Parisians, and it's about the Ritz in Paris during the Second World War, and Coco Chanel lived at the Ritz and she features in the book. She says it's a really good read. And the second is called The Designer, and it's about the story of Christian Dior during the war and how he became a well-known designer, and also how he coped after the war, as there was a huge shortage of fabrics. So thank you for that heads up on that, Jan. Anything extra to say on that, Philippa?
Well, I haven't read either of them, but they both sound really great, don't they? Particularly for me, the Dior one, and I'd be very interested to hear his kind of take on what to use when there was a shortage of fabric after the war. I mean, you know me, it's like use what you've got, be really creative with what you've got. And we chat about that in the class, using the selvage of the fabric for the trim around the edges, all kinds of things like that. And so I think it's really good to kind of remind ourselves about that. And I always think that when you are creative with what you've got, rather than just throwing money and going to buy something, it is often so much more satisfying, and you come up with more inventive and interesting solutions to your design problems. So thank you for that, John. That is really great, and we're always interested to hear what you've been reading. I've just been reading a Swedish book about sheep, David.
Really?
Yes, actually, I've read it at one sitting. I had to put it down.
Was it counting sheep?
No, it's about a Swedish guy who was living in Stockholm with his young family and decided that this wasn't how he should be living, and that he would go back to his family farm and take over from his parents who were about to retire, and how much happier he was with less and with his life and connecting, particularly with the sheep. We were just at the Driffield show, which is an agricultural show in Yorkshire. We were there yesterday, and I could have brought sheep home. There were some gorgeous sheep, and could start knitting just the sheep, really. Start knitting the sheep.
Maisie, my daughter's big into cows. She loves cows. She could bring the cows home, but they're a bit bigger than sheep. Cows. Anyway, so thank you for that, Jan. I bought the V&A book of the exhibition, the Chanel exhibition. That was very interesting as well. Okay, the next question is from Irene Moreau from Washington State, and Irene says, I would like to ask a question about shortening my husband's jeans. After I measure and trim off the proper length, I iron 1/2 inch of the raw edge up, and then I will turn and press another 1/2 to 3/4 up for the hem. I sew near the top of the last turn on the hem. What I would so love to know, how can I keep the hems from turning upward after I wash them? It's like they have a life of their own. Thank you very much. And that's Irene Moreau from Washington State.
Irene, I have never had this question before. It is a complete conundrum. You are doing with the taking up exactly what the manufacturers do in terms of how much fabric you turn up. So you turn up the first thickness and then the second thickness, and then so close to the folded edge. So, we really could do to see the length of the trousers on your husband, because what I just wonder is if at the front of the jeans that they're a little bit long, and so the actual turning of the hem is hitting the front of his shoe, his trainer, whatever he's wearing, and it's flipping it up, and that is encouraging the rest of it to turn up, because I can't really think of any other reason why that would happen. I do have one or two suggestions. I wonder if let me have a think about this. I mean, how would you go about it? I mean, we don't know your husband and how kind of authentic he wants them to look, but what I wondered if you could do was when you turn your hem up, don't do a double turn, just do a single turn. Have a deep hem and overlock the top to neaten it, okay? So maybe you're going to turn up an inch and a quarter, maybe even an inch and a half, something like that, okay? You could stitch it about 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch from the bottom with that kind of yellowy ochre colour, heavy duty cotton jeans thread, and that might be enough to keep it in place, but the excess bit of the hem that is higher up might flip down. I wondered if you could just stitch that just between the seams with just a matching thread in terms of the colour of the jeans, so a blue cotton, something like that, so it held it up, and maybe just having that that deeper, wider turning and not such a definite thick thing that wants to flip would help things stay in place, and you would still have the look of the jean stitching, the distance up from the bottom edge that you want. Just my thought, but anytime you can send us a picture or more pictures with your questions, it would be really helpful. David, can you think of any reasons?
All I'm wondering is if where the stitch. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about really, do I? But I'm just wondering if where the stitching is, the thread is shrinking and it's pulling it in a particular way. But no, I don't think that's
well, then he'd be having that, wouldn't he? If the thread was shrinking.
Yeah.
So, but good thought, David. We need to encourage David, don't we, with engaging in coming up with answers, because his brain is different to mine, and he might think of it in a totally different way. So again, Irene, let us know.
Okay, so thank you for that, Irene. The next question is from Davina Thomas. And Davina says, do you have any tips on adapting charity shop clothes? I have a large men's shirt and was planning on putting darts in the front and back based on the pattern I already have. I've unpicked the collar and I'm going to just have the neck edge piece like a Nehru collar effect, is it?
Yeah.
And also shortening the sleeves, but do you have any other ideas? And Davina says, I also bought a size 16 dress and I'm hoping I can add darts to make it a size 14 without having to unpick everything. I would love if you could do a lesson on adapting clothes, as I find patterns and fabric quite expensive and would like to try buying charity shop clothes and adapting if I can. And that's from Davina Thomas.
And so, just in case some of you are not quite sure, charity shop in the UK, thrift shop in the States. So now I am always altering things, not necessarily charity shop clothes, but I am forever altering things. It is a question that we are asked on a fairly regular basis. I just kind of resist kind of doing a class with it, in a sense, because it's such a big area. There are so many possibilities. There are just too many variables. But I'm going to show you some of the things that I have adapted over the years, or in recent years, so that to give you some ideas. So I really think that when you see something, that you are going to buy, do think about two things. Is this something that is going to be possible for me to alter, or am I just going to buy it for the fabric? So for example, you could be a petite little lady and you might see a really large man's shirt in a fantastic cotton that you think, oh, that's amazing. You're never going to be able to alter that to fit you, are you? But you could use the fabric. If you did cut it into pieces, there would be enough there for you to make a shirt to fit yourself. But just things like the taking the shirt and taking the collar off. What you've got to be aware of is, men's shoulders are very broad. Their necks tend to be much bigger than ours. It's maybe never going to fit you round the neck, even if you take the collar off. So you do need to think about, is it actually possible? Is it going to work? So anyway, let me show you one or two things. What shall we start with? So I actually have two of these. This is a company that went out of business, actually, or disappeared a few years ago, but they were called Clover Canyon, and they were a Californian company, and they made all these amazing sort of beachy clothes in neoprene with these fantastic prints on them. And you can see this sort of stained glass window print here. Now it's stretchy, it's really substantial. The back is different to the front. It doesn't have a zip or anything in it, but it was in TK Maxx, or TJ Maxx if you are American, and it was tiny, but I just loved it, and I thought I can do something with that. And so I bought some inexpensive neoprene type fabric, and I sewed a panel, and it does have a seam at the waist. I sewed a panel on either side, and it was very short, and so I added a fluted extending hem on the bottom, and because it's neoprene, it doesn't fray, and so there's no turning on the hem. It is just cut, and I sewed it on my regular sewing machine with the very slightest little zigzag stitch, and I've even top stitched it. And if I hold it up, there's lots of stretch in there with the polyester thread, so it became a garment that I couldn't possibly have really got on to something incredibly wearable. And I often wear it with a little t-shirt or a polo or something underneath. And I have another one which I did exactly the same thing with, and I don't know if you can see it, but this one, the print that you can see on the sides and on the bottom hem, that is fabric that I purchased. So I purchased this printed fabric, and I think it works perfectly well in the wacky design of this. So a panel down the side and a nice circular section added on the bottom, so I could easily see what to do with that. Now this is not quite an alteration, but I just wanted to show you this. This is a Vivienne Westwood. She's a designer. She died relatively recently. A blouse that I bought many years ago, and it doesn't have any real shaping at the underarm, and it kept splitting and ripping at the underarm. So all I did was sew a piece of broader embroidery anglaise braid over the side seam to extend its life hugely. So that was that one. Now this one here, this is more of a repair, but anyway, I'm going to chat about it just to show you what I did. It's a cotton fabric, but it's a burnout fabric, and so it has all of these shapes cut away. It's very sort of see-through, but what that meant was that the fabric was really not strong, and it ripped at the underarm. It was all white, it was all the same fabric. So I took the sleeves out, I unpicked them, I cut sleeves in a Liberty Lawn and added those, and I added a little gusset section on the underarm to strengthen it, and then just a plain cotton cuff on there, and that has extended its life hugely. Now then, we keep going. There are so many of these. Are we all right with this? Yeah, David said, we haven't got many questions tonight. Are we going to be finished for it? I said, no, not at all. Now this is the most fun little denim dress, and I wear it often in the autumn and winter. I don't know if you can see the hem, but it has this cutaway hem with this wacky shape on it. It's beautifully made.
Show us it on the purple. Just.
Oh, okay. So that's the front there with that big cutout, so it's asymmetrical. The back is not as shaped, and as I say, it's beautifully made. It's got the tiniest little bias binding just finishing off the edges, and I bought it in a sale. It was really inexpensive. It is quite a it was originally quite expensive, but the front, the pattern cutting was poor. The front just kind of bagged. It was just this kind of thing that stood out. And so all I did was I sewed a pleat across the front. So I just took a pleat and then I stitched it, and then I stitched it down. You see it, David? Okay. And that solved it. And so, you know, as soon as I tried it, I thought, that's all it needs. You know, I can do that with it. Okay. So this one, another Vivienne Westwood outfit, again bought in a sale. That was tiny. It was really tiny, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So what did I do? I slit the back from here to here, so just below where the collar is to just below where the hem is. And I tucked in the raw edges, and I inserted a piece of denim in the back there. Again, can you see it, David? Because I wasn't going into a seam, top and bottom, I just stitched I took a motif from a piece of embroidered ribbon, and I just stitched that top and bottom. And if I take it to the inside, the piece that I inserted was quite a large piece that strengthened the back, but it still looks really neat on the inside. And that enabled me to buy this lovely designer jacket that was massively reduced and didn't fit me, and I made it fit me. So here, another blouse. It was again reduced in a sale, and it was bigger than my size, and it's a polyester. It's a very sheer, crinkly polyester, but the neck was massive. The neck was huge. So all I did was I took a pleat out of the back of the collar and the collar stand, and made a little pleat in the centre back of the collar, and that made it fit. And when it is in wear, you have this kind of just double piece of fabric there, which just looks like part of the design. So that was that one. This one was a shirt of my son's, and it must be getting on for 20 years old, and I absolutely loved it, but the sleeves were down here, so all I did was I took the cuffs off and I re-put them back on again. The only slight disadvantage of that was it made the placket quite short, but I can live with that. And then, oh, two more to go. This is a denim jacket that I bought in 1989.
Oh,
and I still wear it. United Colours of Benetton. I bought it when I was living in Burnley in Lancashire, and Benetton had just opened up. We had no decent shops at all, and I've worn it and worn it and worn it, but eventually the back yoke wore into a big hole. It just wore away, and so this is a little bit of hand woven Guatemalan fabric that I picked up from somewhere, and I just I really appliqued a yoke on top of that and put some heavy duty top stitching on there, and then it was all frayed away on the inside, and I just sewed a little bit of cotton tape into the back neck there, and that has at least, what, another 30 years to go in it. And then this one, the final one that I'm going to show you, it's a biker style jacket, and it's a printed knit, and it is again a designer, it's Mark Kane, and I bought it from TK Maxx, and it was way too big. Sleeves are really long, but all I did was I sewed this wide piece of elastic at the lower edge of the back, and so what that did was it pulled in the bottom there, gave me kind of little peplum look to the bottom, made it fit beautifully in terms of around the body. The sleeves, they've got a zip in them. I just fold them back and push them up. Works perfectly. I think it cost me 20 quid or something like that. So you just need a bit of vision. There is so much you can do, but you just need to take out. I can always look at a garment and think, yeah, I can do that with it, I could do that with it. The more you do, the more ideas you get. So analyse yourself, analyse what needs to happen to the garment, and see whether that is possible. And mostly it is possible, and you can make something wonderful from something inexpensive.
Okay, wow, thank you for that, Philippa. That was really interesting. So I've got lots of questions now. I'm going to take some photos and possibly post them in various places, but we'll talk about that later. Rachel Gilbert says, David, can I ask what's your background? You also know what you're talking about around garment making. I'm very good at talking about garment making. My background is marketing and sales and computing, so I know nothing about garment making, I'm afraid.
No, that's not true,
Rachel,
though, is it?
Everything I know I've learned from Philippa. And watching while Philippa teaches the classes, because what you have to remember is when we do the classes, some of the classes we have several takes on the same thing, so I will hear the same information over and over again, and eventually it does sink into my head. Okay, the next question is from Dillis Millard, who calls herself Dillis in the Garden. And Dillis says, I have a question. My daughter is getting married next July. She plans to make her dress simple 50s style rockabilly type thing, knee length. Sounds really cool. What is the best way to make the underskirt so that the dress stands out but doesn't end up in her face and show everything when she sits down? Smiley face. Underslip with several layers of gathered net. Whereabouts would we start the net layers and how far apart? And that's from Dillis.
Well, Dillis, that sounds really exciting, and I wonder if the whole wedding is going to be 50s themed, and what are you going to wear? I mean, there's so many questions here. What a lovely thing to be planning, how exciting. My suggestion is that you go to a pre-loved bridal shop and you have a look at their petticoats and their underskirts. Last month we chatted about a red and white evening wear dress that I had made, and I actually purchased the underskirt for that from a second-hand wedding dress shop, Pre-Loved on Grove Hill Road, and it basically is a polyester that forms an underskirt, and it has a tie waist, so that it's just a casing, so it works for lots of sizes because you can just pull it up more or less, and then it has not a lot of net stitched on that. I think maybe only 2 layers, and the netting that goes around so several inches up from the hem, and then a second one further up as well. It is gathered, but it's a piece that you make a circular piece and you gather it in the middle and stitch it on so that it's a double piece. Does that make sense, David? Okay, so that is done twice. Well, it cost me £15, and it just wasn't any point in spending all the time to make it and buying all the actual net that I would have needed when it was so inexpensive. And so even if you end up not buying one, and they will have different lengths, absolutely will, you'll be able to go and have a really good look at what they've got, how they are constructed, and you'll get a feel for the fabrics that are used for the actual underskirt itself and the net that goes over the top. There is no way when I sit down that it whooshes up like that. It just doesn't. It just performs and sits really well and can be smoothed down. And I really think that, you know, you put all the effort into the dress and all the other things. You don't have to make absolutely every bit, but going and having a good look and doing that bit of research, if you really do decide you want to make your own, it will really help you with that. So off you go, Dilys, and I'll be seeing you at a festival, Dilys.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to tee up there is a picture that goes with the next one. Okay, so we have a couple more. Well, they're not really questions; they're feedback. We've had some people who've made the Chanel jackets. So here is the first one. This is from Susan. The jacket looks absolutely fabulous. And Susan just posted it in the Facebook group and said, "Thank you, Philippa, for such fabulous instructions. I even did the buttonholes," and that's from Susan, and I'm just admiring that. That looks just amazing. Can
I just chat about it?
Yes, please do.
It looks absolutely gorgeous, Susan. You've done such a brilliant job with it. I mean, everything about it, the set of your sleeves, I can see your buttons there. Your trim looks amazing. It's a fantastic contrast with that dark red, and then you've got your little frilly trim there, which I imagine is the selvage. It looks beautiful on you. You must be so proud. It is amazing. You are going to get so many compliments with that jacket. And just before we kind of finish on that, what I found totally amazing was that the picture of Susan wearing her jacket, and then she's got it on her mannequin, her stand there, that her legs, her trousers and the mannequin are exactly the same colour. I mean, exactly. Yeah. So, but I couldn't be more proud of you, because it is quite the job, and you have executed it superbly. You must be so pleased.
Okay, so we've got another one from Rosemary who posted, and she said, "The love-hate relationship with my Chanel jacket is finally over," and I can understand that because they do take a lot of work to get them there. But she says the pattern is Vogue 7975, and we've got a picture for this one as well. There she is. This is Rosemary. The pattern is the Vogue E7975 version E. The Linton tweed was very difficult to work with, but I got there in the end. The lining is bamboo silk. I may even have enough of each left over for a matching skirt. It's actually black and white and an orangey red, and in real life looks more red and white than in the photo. I'm very happy with it. Thank you, Philippa, for another fantastic lesson. I particularly found the pattern matching section invaluable, and the content was fantastic. That just looks amazing. Yeah, no, so Rosemary, it's adorable. You must be so delighted, I mean, both of you. And just how lovely to see the detail on the inside, so where you can see all of the quilting stitching, where the lining is held to the outer fabric to stabilise it and give it structure. I mean, again, it looks amazing. I mean, I'm looking at it, all the
buttons, all that fantastic matching. So there's quite a dominant red stripe going across, and you've got that perfectly across the front of the jacket, on the pockets, going through the sleeves, everything. There is a lot of content in the class about pattern matching and working with checks and stripes that it takes you into all kinds of garments, not just this Chanel jacket, but it is so professional. I mean, both of them, but that pattern matching is just amazing. So I can't tell you how pleased I am for both of you that you've done such a fabulous job with that. I mean, goodness me.
Sarah Ranicle says that's Rosemary's second jacket too.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is
so she's
it?
already made one and she's going round the loop again. Well done, you.
Pinnacle of home sewing. I mean, absolute couture standard there. So yes. So Sarah, which of your lovely family are accompanying you to the Festival of Quilts this year then? Yeah, just so that we can be forewarned.
Okay, so the next comment this was from Julie, who again posted in the group, and Julie was posting some fabric which I thought was worth, I can't remember which button to press now, there we go. So Julie says, exciting post today, my Chanel jacket fabric from White Lodge Fabrics has arrived, absolute bargain at £6.99 a metre.
Whoa.
I want to feel relaxed making my jacket, an expensive fabric would worry me. It's polyester, but I can live with that. It's light to medium weight, which will be fine if it turns out okay, as I want it for spring, summer. And that's from Julie. And that's basically what you've been saying, isn't it,
Yeah.
Philippa? You don't have to have expensive fabrics to make it look good.
No, absolutely. I had an £8 a metre fabric there, which I'm hoping to get made up at some point, but probably not before the Festival of Quilts. But yeah, no, absolutely. Cut your teeth with those inexpensive fabric. You will still have a beautiful garment, and then you can really fly with your choice of fabrics. Well, what a lovely thing to end on. Absolutely. Isn't that amazing? So I don't think...
We haven't seen Peter
no,
today,
we haven't. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's blowing up some tyres on some old wheelbarrows or something like that. So our needle winners are Esther, Jocelyn and Vicky.
Esther asked a question today.
Oh, right. Yes, she did, didn't she?
Yeah.
Goodness. And Vicky Smith. So well done to both of you. David will be in touch to get your address and we will post you off some needles. So for those of you that are in the UK and going to the Festival of Quilts, you can find us there for all 4 days. We are in the Quilt in Action Centre section, which is between the 2 main halls. It's where we have been for the last 4 occasions where we have had a booth at festival. So this is our 5th year. I'm busy working on the booth at the moment, getting things ready, and we will have various samples there. The Chanel jackets will be there for you to have a look at. So do come and say hello to us. We'd love to see what you've been up to. And if you turn up wearing some of your clothes, don't be shy. You know, if you're wearing your jeans or anything that you've made, your jacket, your shift dress, whatever it happens to be, we want to know and get some photos, because our other members will be interested to see. So from David and myself and Peter somewhere, thanks so much for being with us this evening. Thank you for all your great questions. Thank you for making such beautiful things and making what we do here so worthwhile. It's a joy to see it all. And for those of you who are coming to the Festival of Quilts, we look forward to seeing you. If you're not there, we will be back again towards the end of August, and hopefully lots more great questions to answer and things to tell you about. So from David,
bye-bye,
and from me, take care everybody, enjoy the sunshine. Okay, cool, perfect.